Hello and welcome to a DM's guide to Icewind Rime of the Frostmaiden. This is the first episode of a brand new season. So the plan for this season is that I'm going to go through Icewind Dale and I'm going to show a DM how to run it and give you some tips and tricks. Just a quick note, if you are a player in this campaign, definitely do not watch these videos. So with our previous season, DM's Guide to Annihilation, I learned many things and hopefully things I learned from that season bring to this one. So in this episode, I'm going to show you a brief synopsis of this campaign, what to look out for, just give you a quick run through if you want to actually DM it or not. If you do like this content, remember to like and subscribe, and if you are feeling generous, there's a Patreon link in the description below. So with Icewind Dale, we have our antagonist, the big bad, which is Orl the Frostmaiden right here. She's a neutral, evil lesser god of the cold indifference who embodies winter's cruelty. So your players, their ultimate goal of this campaign is to release Icewind Dale from this perpetual winter. It never ends. The big bad Orl, the Frostmaiden, she has caused light not to shine over Icewind Dale. This internal winter has caused lots of trouble for 10 towns, and your players' plan is to figure out what's causing this internal night and how to save Icewind Dale from slowly dying to this winter. The campaign has many distinct parts. The first part is you have these 10 towns. Each 10 town has its own flavour, its own background. You can start the campaign in any one of these 10 towns, which I'll go in more detail later on. Once the characters have learned, they've gained experience, they're going to find out about a Duergar settlement in Sunblight. When they go to Sunblight's fortress, they realise that the Duergar have created a dragon out of a material known as Charlatan. This Charlatan dragon is going to lay waste to the majority of 10 towns, and your player characters have to decide, do they take on Sunblight's fortress, figure out where this dragon's going, or do they run straight after this dragon? After this concludes, a number of these 10 towns will be destroyed. Depending on your character's actions, as potentially all these towns could be destroyed. After that section of the campaign finishes, you're then sent on a mission by a wizard known as Feline. Feline Harple wants to go to the Sea of Moving Ice to find 2 artifacts. The Professor Orb, so she can find more information about this city buried underneath the Rain Glacier, and also to find a document known as the Conceal of White. And once you have this document, you can open up this glacier and go further below. However, it was not that easy. So as you go to Sea Moving Ice, you arrive on an island. As you arrive on the Isle of Solace, you have came to the Big Bad's territory. This is where Orl the Frostmaiden lives. And in her fortress of Groundskull, this is where the Consul of White is. So your player characters have to go to this, do her various challenges, which again I'll explain in a later episode. And as you collected this document, you can now finally go to the Rain Glacier. You can open up the access to the Rain Glacier at the Caves of Hunger. Once you descend through Caves of Hunger, this long dungeon, you can access this forgotten city of Rathrun. And once you have dealt with this, many things can happen, as in your player characters defeat Orl the Frostmaiden as they arrive at her island, or do they simply run away and meet her at the end at the Rathrun. So I've currently DM'd this for about 5 groups, and I've done at least 50 or 60 sessions in this campaign setting. The game can go in many different directions, and that's what makes it so interesting. With my experience with this campaign running it, you have to add your own information in to fill the gaps. If you want the challenge of an open world and filling in all this information, the biggest thing you need to understand is you have 10 locations. Each of these locations you can treat almost as one-shots. The next thing you figure out is how will your player characters get from location A to location B. As I said before, it's perpetual night, it's very, very dark all the time, which means your characters can be surprised very easily by various creatures and various enemies. And because we are dealing with winter, travel is not going to be easy, so you're going to be walking through this darkness, you're going to be trudging through deep snow, and just this horrible, desolate cold. First thing you need to realise as a DM is how your player character is going to get there. Are they going to walk? Are they going to take axe beaks? Or eventually at later levels are they going to fly? So how do you start your campaign in Icewind Dale? Well, the first thing I will do is run a session 0. I'll get all my players together. Piece of advice, if you are wanting to run this campaign due to COVID-19 and due to the pandemic, I would definitely recommend buying the module in Roll20. It makes everything 10 times easier. But that's my opinion, and just to clarify, I'm not sponsored by Roll20. However, Roll20, if you're listening, sponsorship would be much appreciated. Make me feel really good. So with my session 0, the way I'll run it is I'll give everyone a brief summary. So I'll get all the players together, and the first thing I'll do is go to Welcome to the Far North. I'll give these chapters a really brief read. So you want to figure out, A, what's it like in the wilderness? What threats does this cold have, and it's really important to look through this wilderness survival. So we need to talk about avalanches, blizzards, veering off course, extreme cold, and of course the most important thing, fishing for knucklehead trout, the main food source in Icewind Dale. We have the perpetual night and getting from point A to point B, and you just want to test the waters. I'll do a mini session 0 and then I'll do a one shot choosing one of the 10 towns. One of the reasons you can get away with this is by the fact that everything's quite far away. If your player characters want to walk from, let's say, Bremen to Targos, it's going to take quite a lot of time. So for instance, to get from Bremen to Targos, it will take at least 2 hours if you go by foot. And if you have snow boots or you have a dog sled, you can do that in 1 hour. So because of all these isolated towns, you can quite easily just do a single town for a one shot. So once you've got your players together, what I would recommend doing is sitting them down and giving them the introduction in cold open, just so you can set the scene and tell them what they're in for. Icewind Dale has become trapped in a perpetual winter. Furious blizzards make the mountain pass through the spine of the world exceedingly treacherous, and this land has not felt the warmth of the sun in over 2 years. In fact, the sun no longer appears above the mountains, not even in what should be the height of summer. In this frozen tundra, darkness and bitter cold reign as king and queen. Most Dale residents blame Orl the Frostmaiden, the god of winter's wrath. The simmering aurora that weaves across the sky each night is said to be her doing, a potent spell that keeps the sun at bay. Dale folk live in a scattering of settlements known as 10 towns. The drop-off in caravans coming from the south and travel between settlements in this never-ending winter has left everyone feeling isolated. Although each town has resolved to appease the Frostmaiden with sacrifices of one kind or another, no respite for winter's fury seems forthcoming. For adventurers such as yourselves, 10 towns is a place to test one's mettle and, in spirit of heroes who have come before, leave one's mark on this frigid, blighted land. So as you've set the stage here, you can now give your players some information. So what you need to figure out is A, is your player character from 10 towns, so you would know the basic information of all these different towns. Are they a reigned nomad? Have they been living off the tundra? And they would know information about the 4 tribes that live within Icewind Dale. Is one of your party members a Goliath? Are they a part of 2 warring tribes in Sky Tower Shelter in Wormdrum Crag? Or are they a member of the Valley Dwarves at the base of Kevin's Cairn? And once you can figure out who your players are and where they're from, you can build up the story from there. For instance, if you have a group of adventurers that have just arrived from Waterdeep, they won't know any of this information. And because a campaign's a lot of reading material, you can choose what to read. Because if you read everything, most likely you forget key facts that are really important when you're playing these sessions. To make things more interesting, your players can choose a character secret. With Icewind Dale, you might conceive many notes of inspiration when writing this campaign. As you can see here with the slad bursting from this hero's chest, this is definitely inspired by Alien, or perhaps from The Shining, many other films such as The Thing. So this is a really good point to bring up that in your session 0, you should talk with your players about horror. Is it something your players enjoy? Is it something they dislike? Because if they're not too fond of horror, it's going to make this game quite hard to play. You can tone down Icewind Dale to make it more family friendly. You can just chop out certain parts. But from my experience and what I like playing, I believe that bringing in the horror and this winter isolation just brings the campaign together. But let me know in the comment section below, will you try to run Icewind Dale as a horror, or do you think it failed as that? So with these character secrets, there's loads to choose from. As in, some are good, some are just more for flavour. For instance, a Dretz fan doesn't give your character any mechanical benefits, but it's a good reference to past books and just old school D&D. One thing I do watch out for is that if you are giving your player characters secrets, make sure that you're doing it by chance, because if they get a quick read of these secrets, they're definitely going to choose Midwinter Child. And this allows Orl the Frostmaiden to bless one of your player characters and give them resistance to cold damage, which will make this campaign a lot easier. From my experience with this, feel free to tweak them a little bit. Icewind Dale is quite a deadly campaign. I've had a number of characters die at level 5 and they're brought back, and these secrets don't really stack that well. So for instance, with the Owlbear Whisperer, I had a player who came back and he wanted to make a Goliath from one of the nomadic tribes. We chose Owlbear Whisperer, And what I allowed him to do, because he was level 5, he had a lot of experience as an adventurer, he'd been living this in the world, I allowed him to have an owlbear companion from the offset. Due to the fact the rest of the party have already got axe beaks, got dog sleds, I thought it was a bit more unique. And if you see Goliath, that's about 8 foot 9 foot tall, it'd be suitable for him to have an owlbear companion. If you've got any other ideas what you can do with these secrets to improve them as your characters level up, let me know in the comment section below. And again, player death is very, very common in this campaign, as in I've killed well over 6 characters with 5 different groups. Because of these player deaths, I think it's very important that you read the 10 towns before you begin playing, as you can do it randomly, but for my personal opinion, at level 1, if you do the side quest for East Haven, Toll and Trouble, I would say you're almost guaranteed to kill one of your player characters. I've always heard similar stories with Dugan's Hole. If you want to make sure that your player characters arrive and survive the first level, I'd recommend starting with Brandsander, and you'll have 2 opening quests, which I'll detail much more in the next episode. So you have Cold-Hearted Killer, which is not designed for first level party. The antagonist of this mission will easily kill a party of first level characters. If your player characters get cocky, you might have to reorganize the entire party with this starting quest. So it's very important that if your player characters start in Brandsander and you give them this quest, make sure that the caravan of Torga is somewhere in Cairnaval, Goodmead, or Bremen, just far enough away where you realistically won't get there in one session. If you want to give them an easy start, Nature Spirits, from what I've read and what I've seen, is a nice introduction. If you have beginner players that are not too sure the mechanics of D&D, this is an ideal one. It also shows that your game is not all about horror and murder. You can play make-believe and eat imaginary food with Twingos. If you want me to do more detail of Nature Spirits mission, just let me know in the comment section below. One other thing I would highlight, that if you are trying to fire a high level party into this campaign setting, these 10 towns, if you are past 4th level, it isn't really suitable to do a one shot in these 10 towns with these missions. However, you do have a mission in chapter 2 with the Black Cabin, which is ideal for it. But I will discuss Black Cabin in a future episode. So a quick summary of what I've said today. If you are jumping into Icewind Dale, it's a lot to read, but just break it down into 3 parts. You have 10 towns, you have Sunblight's Fortress, you have the Sea of Moving Ice, Frostmaiden's Fortress, you have the Dungeon Crawl in Caves of Hunger, and you'll finish with the Lost City of Rathrun. Guys, I'm not gonna lie, it's been an absolute pleasure doing the previous season, and I'm super excited to introduce you to Icewind Dale. If you've got any questions, any tips you want to give me, feel free to put in the comment section below, and I'll see you in the next one where I'll discuss the starting town of Bremen. If you do like this content, remember to like and subscribe, and if you are feeling generous, there's a Patreon link in the description below. I'll see you next time. Ciao.